Okay, let's begin. Are we the 28th? I think we are, of May of the year 2001. And I'd like to begin tonight's class by talking about a feeling that I got about an hour or so ago. As I said, I just got in from the Big Island, and about an hour ago, maybe a little about that. Joe went to pick me up at the airport, and I wasn't here, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I started getting a very strange feeling, kind of like an uneasy feeling. I didn't know what it was, like a nervousness or a kind of a funny, pit in the stomach kind of thing, kind of weird. And of course, the first thing you wonder is it me? What's wrong with me? Is something wrong? I mean, I just came back from a really beautiful trip. I go there, a few times a year, as you may know, and do the readings and things. And people are really beautiful over there. I have this big extended ohana over there, and I get to see them, and it's a really nice time. It's very sweet, and not to mention how beautiful it is. Excuse me. So I had no reason to feel weird, is the bottom line. But I was feeling very weird. And I still sense a bit of it, but it's not as strong as it was, okay? And then it suddenly became like an object lesson, and it's this. When I was about 16, 17, and I was just starting to learn and take classes, I had a lady who was a very psychic woman who was my teacher, my first psychic teacher. And one day I was in high school at that time, by the way. One day she called me up. She said, "Art, you're feeling kind of weird, aren't you?" And as a kid, a 16-year-old kid, well, you're not, most kids, I think, aren't that, tuned into their own feelings in a way. I wasn't. But, I mean, the minute she said it, I said, yeah. I mean, I had to look at it. But I was just kind of bouncing along the way you do when you're that age. And then she said it's kind of a weird, like a down kind of a feeling, like a depressed feeling. And I checked it, and I went, yeah, actually it is. She goes, "You've been feeling it this whole afternoon, haven't you?" And I went, "Yeah, I have." She was that way, though. She was very, very intuitive, very good. And she said, "Well, the Vietnam War just escalated today, and a lot of guys were sent to Vietnam, and there's a lot of sorrow that is floating in huge thought forms around the planet, and like clouds, they circulate." She said, "And that's what you're feeling. This is the price you pay for sensitivity. That it's good that you are sensitive, because then, of course, you can tune in and do different things. But the price we pay is that you don't just feel the good, you feel it all. So I say that to you because I'm quite sure every one of you here at some point has felt something like that, where you feel a little weird, a little strange, and you have no reason to. Okay, it's one thing. I mean, we all know our lives. It's one thing if there's something that's bothering you. There's something that maybe a loved one's going through something. You loving them, being sensitive. You're going to feel it, and that's just normal. But then there's times when nothing. You can't really put your finger on it, and you're still feeling junk. So what's up with that? Okay, a lot of times that's what it is. It is actually that you're sensing something that is probably going on planetarily. I'm sensing right now. I mean, this is no secret if you read the newspapers, but I don't read them that much, but I'm just every now and then. I'm sensing that it has something to do with an escalation going on in the Middle East. That's a feeling I have. There's a tension, there's something that's about to happen. I mean, we could be looking at a war type situation breaking out there sometime soon. And if so, well, we're all going to feel it. I mean, for one thing, just having people being sent there is already bad enough. Not to mention those who may not come back, but and of course back in the Vietnam days that was really terrible, as you know. I mean, many guys were going. So think of it, I mean, the guys themselves who did not want to go, not to mention their moms, dads, sisters, lovers, wives, children, whatever, I mean, I don't want to bring you all down, the tears, not the hankies, sorry. But I mean, we gotta talk about these things, Well, I felt good till I got here, Art. Thanks, Art. Yeah, I know. Sorry. It is Memorial Day. Mamma mia. Well, that's part of it. There you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. There you go. That's it. That's part of it. That's part of it, yeah. That's definitely part of it, but I don't think that's all of it. It may be that and, in addition, whatever else. Because I do feel things are definitely escalating over there. I mean, I'm not one that get to watch the news a lot. I don't read the newspaper every day. But I could tell which way the wind's blowing. So, what we can do is work together in a group. And that's the first thing I think that would be very timely and very good. So, I am simply going to do an invocation. As I do it, I would like to invite you all to participate in whatever way you want. In other words, if you feel like sending energy, send energy. If you feel like visualizing something, visualize. Do whatever you want. You'll all be intuitively guided. You'll all know what to do. And I'm just going to, whatever words come to me, I'm just going to say them, and we'll do that, okay? I think it's a wonderful service that we can perform for the planet, because so we need it. Elohim, Elohim, Elohim. Creative force of the universe. Divine love, omnipotent. Let thy love permeate the earth plane in this hour in full measure, surrounding us with clouds of pink, gold, white, green, and violet. Beloved Elohim, Eros and Amora, Elohim of the third ray, let the world know a great loving in this hour. Let the planet Earth be completely encircled with the beautiful pink energy of love. And let this energy not only circulate in, through, and around Terra, but then let it go forth, contacting and healing the rest of cosmos. We ask that this day be transformed and transmuted into one of complete revelation. We ask that the love flame be focused everywhere on earth, more powerfully than it ever has been, within the time frame of the growth pattern of earth and her evolutions. We call to the 7 archangels and the 7 chohans of the rays to this day douse the earth with violet fire and with the flame of love as never before, so that we can learn that love and love alone is the answer to all human problems and solutions that are being sought. We are asking in this hour that there be a irreversible transmutation in the consciousness of those evolving on this planet, so that never again will they seek war as a means of resolution of conflict. We call to the gods and goddesses that are working on all dimensions and on all countries and continents to help to accelerate this love fire as it goes forth. We are asking, in keeping with the revelation that was given to us some time ago, that the Hawaiian god Ku will also move into action. For behold, as was revealed, he is not necessarily a god of war, but a god of resolution. And so we are calling to that God and all the gods and goddesses, not just in Hawaii, but everywhere, to work closely with the leaders in government, in finance, in politics, all those who are truly the decision makers on this planet, that these might be infused with the love fire that will completely and totally change their way of thinking and their way of doing business. Let love then be the intensity that is felt on the earth in this hour, replacing all tensions, all sense of injustice, all sense of separation from God, and all sense of fear, and that sense of the clouds of gathering gloom that cause one to tremble. Let it all be replaced with love. We call to peace and aloha. We call to all the great ones who work with us to take this, our call, and all of our thoughts and intentions and magnify them by the power of the 3 times 3 and by the power of the 10,000 times 10,000, and bring about a wonderful, wonderful turning point in this hour, a true milestone in the history of Earth, so that never again will we see the need to plunge ourselves into war, but instead we'll know that with love there is a solution that is far greater, far higher, and far closer to the will of God. We accept this done in full power and know that a joyousness now rings throughout the planet, that the tones of love and love alone will drown out any lesser inharmonies, any cacophonies of human discord. Let love and love alone then be our future and the pillow upon which we rest our heads in this very hour. We accept it done in full God power, so be it. Amen. I think it's very important that we will give thought to the fact that we are all very potent broadcasting stations, that we are individually quite powerful, far more than what we've ever been led to believe, and that we are quite capable of changing history. There are some of us here in this room who have done just that. Actually, we all have. Just by living, just by breathing, just by thinking, just by creating, because we're all affecting the whole. But I have it on very good authority that there's 1 or 2 people in here who have been real history makers and changers, you might say, and because they were in incarnation at a given time, in a certain position, doing a certain thing, things went better than they might have otherwise. It always comes down to the individual, always does. So I think it's really important that we focus on that and not underestimate the role of the one. The law of the one, the cosmic law of the one, is that each one of us, with God, if you will, has no opposite. The law of the one is the law that would, you might say, outrank the law of polarity. The law of polarity simply describes a condition that exists on the lower dimensions. You know, day, night, good, bad, male, female, all that kind of stuff. But as you get to the higher ones, there is no such thing. It's all just one. It's all one force, one power. And we can use that law on Earth. For instance, when you are in the act of creating anything, it's really good to seat yourself in a circle. That's why magical ceremonies have always included usually circles, rings that you tend to stand within or be within, at least mentally, if not physically. It's because you're putting yourself in the law of the one and you're saying this is or will be, and there is no opposite to it. It's not like, well, this is what I'm creating, but I hope that something else doesn't happen, because then you're going into polarity there. And by doing so, you're opening the door for something else to happen, right? We don't want to do that. We just want to make it all or nothing. You Scorpios in the room can appreciate this. Huh? All or nothing. And in keeping with this, I want to do something that I know I've done with some of you individually and certainly in group. And it's this. In the cold towel sessions that I've been doing with ever increasing frequency these days, because more and more people seem to need them. They're great. there's one little aspect in there that we use, and we're only going to do that one right now. I think it'd be really good, and it is this. I'm going to ask you all to consciously internalize. That means to close your eyes and go within. Consciously internalizing is different than, for instance, like when you go to sleep. Okay, most of us, when you go to sleep, what do? You roll into bed, you close your eyes, you roll around a little bit, pow, you're gone. That's not consciously internalizing. That's passing out. Okay. I mean, literally, you pass out of your body, right? It's passing out. That's what people say. You pass out of what? Of your body. But when you meditate, you consciously internalize. You know, you sit there, you remain conscious, and you go within. So that's where we can go now. So if you all would, close your peepers, close your beautiful eyes, because, of course, to do so is immediately to focus inward. So like those salmon on the mainland that have to swim against the current to get where they're going to fulfill their destiny, we, in a sense, are going to swim against the current of consciousness, which, when we're awake and moving around, tends to want to be out there. He wants to look at outside things, talk to outside people, and do outside things. So we want to, turn all that off and go in and in and in, as beloved Guru Deva Subramanya Swami tells us to do. Go in and in and in by an act of your will, and then go in and in and in some more. That's how to internalize. It's an act of will, there's no question about it. It doesn't just happen, you must will it. So the right use of will is using your will to accomplish those ends that will bring you greater clarity and a greater state of consciousness. So let us go within. And in this particular exercise, I would like you to locate a fear you have. A fear. Now some people will say, I don't have fears. I'm not afraid of anything. That may be true. And if that is true and you are that fortunate, then I would say, then locate a negative possibility that you hope doesn't happen, but you think just might at some point. That would be the closest you would come to a fear then, if that's the case. But in any case, I think you know what I mean. Something that it would be undesirable, and for some of you, it would just basically be fear. It's just something you really, really, really don't want to happen, but you believe it can happen, and you really are fearful that it can happen, and you'll be powerless to stop it or change it. That's called a fear. So locate a fear, if you would. Be very brave, and very honest with yourself, if you would. And look at it. Fear grows in the garden of ignorance. So we have to be knowledgeable about the things that we fear, because that starts the reversal process in getting rid of that thing. So once you have something, again, a fear, or again, for those of you who don't feel you have a fear, then simply a negative, possibility. Excuse me, my throat's kind of weird, but just never mind that. Then you would want to, the definition that the guides gave of fear is a negative possibility that you believe can happen to you, that you hope does not happen, but you feel powerless to stop and somewhat victimized by. That was their definition of fear. So that being the case, the operative part of the phrase is that you believe can happen. There's our key. You believe it can happen. Otherwise, there would be nothing there. So you want to disbelieve it. All beliefs are optional. You don't have to believe anything, really. If you think about it. So now you want to reverse your belief that this can happen and make it a belief that it cannot happen, as a matter of fact. That it never will. That it's impossible. No way. Not in a million years. It just won't, because you don't allow it. And by the grace of God Almighty, we have this wonderful, wonderful gift. Next to the gift of life itself, I think the most wonderful, of self-determination. We decide We've been given that wonderful prerogative to decide what will and will not, what can and cannot happen to us. By our beliefs, by what we will. So please reverse that thing so it cannot happen. and really, this is one of those powers or abilities nobody has probably told you about. I was not told about this. No one told me this. I didn't learn it in school. Even though I majored in psychology when I was in college, they didn't teach me this. They didn't teach me very much of anything that I can recall that was of any use, I don't think. So again, you could have PhDs all over the wall and you still wouldn't know this. So use it to your advantage, dear ones, and reverse the thing so that it cannot happen. And this is something only you can gauge. But you want to really do this until you can feel it. I mean, you got to go deep in your emotions. It's not just a mental little mind game. Feel it deeply. Feel your power. Feel the power you have to banish this possibility from your mental realm once and for all. It does not serve you. Get rid of it. Pull it like a weed. Sometimes you almost have to get outraged by it. If you had a neighbor who came to your house every day without asking, just walked on in whenever they wanted to, went through all your stuff, took what they wanted, trashed your house, and then hung out, used everything you had, then walked out, or didn't, you wouldn't put up with that. You know you wouldn't. It's outrageous. You wouldn't allow such a thing. Then why do we allow thoughts to do the same thing to us? They're like thugs, thug thoughts. They push you around, they make you uncomfortable, they come and go when they want. That is not an indication of mastery. So get rid of it, pull it like a weed, and because nature abhors a vacuum, replace it with something. Don't just leave a gaping hole there in your garden. Replace it. Put something that does serve you in that same situation. What is your vote? What is your version? What would you like there instead? Probably the opposite, I would think. Whatever, put something beautiful there, something wonderful, something just beautiful, makes your heart happy. Good, very good. Everything begins with a thought. Everything. There are no exceptions. As the guides have pointed out to us, the clothes we are wearing were once a thought in a designer's mind, and now we wear them. The cars that you came here in were a thought in, I believe, Henry Ford's mind once. Now we all drive them. This room was a thought in an architect's mind. And on and on and on. Everything begins with thought, no exceptions. So we start with the building blocks of creation, thought. So if you've done this correctly, my dear ones, you have now relieved yourself of a fear, a very unnecessary thought form, and replaced it with something that works for you. And that's really, really neat. Congratulations. And the last thing is this. Once you have changed it, or I should say thought of a new version or something that really works for you, whatever you have replaced what used to be a fear with, then love your new creation the way a mother loves her child. Because our thoughts are like infants when first birthed, when first thought of. So they need love, they need care, so that they can grow to maturity and be a mature aspect of reality for us in our lives. So that's how we do it. Works very well. Think big. Be happy. And feel yourself back in the seat of authority where you belong, with a rod of power in your hand, not in anyone else's. It's not up to anyone else, just up to you. So be it. One of the best uses of your clairvoyance is this. And when you feel ready, then just release it, know that it is done. You've done yourself an incalculable service, and the rest of the planet as well, because whatever we do, of course, goes into the, the conglomerate, the mass consciousness, if you will. So that's our contribution. Effort well spent, I think. Okay, very good. God bless you all for making the world a little more happy, loving, and you've all gotten rid of a fear or two. Good. We're all better off. I don't want to catch your fears. Fears are like coals, the people pass them around. Did you know that? No, I didn't. Well, it's true. Oh, wow. Okay. I was told shortly after last class that tonight's class was going to be this. Our dear friend Estelle Roberts has written a book. Excuse me. God, excuse me. Wow. Has written a book. And the book is called Association. Association. She showed me the book in spirit. I saw it. I haven't read it. I don't know what's in it. But she told me that tonight she was going to dictate one of the chapters of that book. So one day, I believe that book's going to be in print. And guess what? You sat here and watched it being dictated. Just think. Okay. But I mean, that isn't the real, important point. The important point is the fact that whatever it is she's going to talk about, association, obviously, excuse me, we can benefit from just because we're hearing it right from her. And as most of you know, she's been very active lately. She first was one of the very first ones that worked with me at the beginning of my mediumship. She really was. 1986, Holy Wei, this Chinese guy, was the very first one that came. He worked with me for a year, showed me how to go into trance, all that kind of thing. And literally started at the beginning of the year, and by the time New Year's Eve came, and it was literally New Year's Eve, and there was a bunch of us gathered, and he said, well, thanks to my work with you, service, whatever, I've been able to earn a greater place, whatever, and now you will work with a group. And there is a man who is the spokesman for that group, and I now introduce you to the spokesman for that group, that Council of Six, as he called it. Next thing you know, this interesting British voice comes through, and and then the rest is just history. Well, amongst this group, and by the way, I don't know who all the six are. It may seem strange, but I don't. One of them was a lady who, introduced herself as Estelle Roberts, didn't tell much about herself, had a few things to say, and that was it. And sometime later, I was in Kapahulu at a place called the Book People, and her book just jumped out at me, literally. I mean, off the shelf almost. It was called 50 Years of Medium, and I know some of you have read it. Wonderful book. Wonderful, wonderful book. She was one of England's top mediums, just one of the best. So that was wonderful, and she stayed with me for about a year or two. And then she seemed to go away. Then I never heard of her for the longest time, years, I would say. And real recently, about the last year or two, she's come back. And she's back on a mission, a real mission, having to do with women. She's all about women. Feminine psychology, and a lot of you have heard another tape that she dictated that I played on the radio show and so on. And she's all about women. I do not know exactly what she's going to talk about, other than I know it's a chapter out of the book. So that's what we're doing. So, excuse me. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the show. But don't go to sleep. Now let's see. I want to turn this light off, and I will. But I don't want it to be a suggestion to go to sleep for anybody. Okay, you know that old saying, "Lights out." Lights out. It means go to sleep, right? Don't. Okay, so.
I like the lanterns.
Well, do they work? Are they okay?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, so we have light in here, but just not this bright electric light right in my face, because it doesn't help to go into trance that way. Liked, of course, about our spirit friends is that as they have pointed out, that we're all of us, them, us, we're all multidimensional beings, and therefore it follows we have multidimensional experiences, multidimensional conversations, etc. So whenever they speak, and I mean whenever they speak, as far as I'm concerned, they're always talking on several levels at once. So I would say that might be one thing you might, God, excuse me, you might consider, trying to notice that as she's speaking, see how many levels you can tune into. I think it'd be kind of fun. I just come back from, I said the Big Island, I did like a whole lot of readings over there, probably too many. I'm noticing I'm kind of hoarse almost from all the talking. Wow. Okay, I think we're ready. We've got this going. This is off. Okay. Beloved Estelle, you have indicated that you want to do this work, so here we are. We're attentive, ready, and willing to receive you. Please come and give us the benefit of what you know. I am seeing Estelle in a way I've never seen her. She's wearing what looks like a very formal gown. I've never seen this. Frankly, I've never noticed that much what she was wearing, but I do now. It's a very formal type, like you would wear to go to a very formal dinner type thing. I think we've caught it. We are all very experimental beings. We must be. For deep within what some might call the DNA of each one is a knowledge that we are all as in a great vast laboratory, as chemists, as alchemists, as those that shall only learn by combining, arranging, doing research, and learning from the results, whether they be true, or whether we discover that we have come upon a miscalculation. Either way, we learn. And so we come to the heart of the discourse, which is how we learn through association. I should like to suggest that those that hear these words and or read them should take the time and trouble at their leisure to draw up lists of our favorite things, a list of 25 different things that we quite enjoy for whatever reason. These things, listed vertically on a piece of paper, each on a separate line, should then be followed horizontally by the first thing that we associate with that particular beloved topic. For instance, if one of you was very fond of dancing, you would put dancing down. Then next to it, to the right, the first thing you can think of that you associate with dancing. And then next to that, another thing, and so on. Try to see if you can get 6 different connected words or phrases that will in some way or the other be associated with the first topic, in this case, dancing. You would be surprised, my dears. You shall learn much about association by simply doing this simple exercise. Now, of course, to learn of yet other aspects of ourselves, we'd want to do the same thing with things that we do not like, things that we've got perhaps even an aversion to, but certainly things that we consider unpleasant, perhaps painful, perhaps fearful, the so-called negatives. Same thing, same list, same associated words. You shall learn much, beloved, by doing this very simple exercise. And yet we're not done with the lists, but I should like you then to write another list. This one not so lengthy, containing only 12 different slots. These to be filled by the names of people that you know and know very well. Indeed, I should like to suggest the 12 you know the best. And then, of course, it won't be hard to guess. Do the same as to association. The plot thickens. You shall come to see some very interesting things, not so much about any of these people or items, but about yourselves. Some of you associate certain people with the most wonderful things you've ever experienced in your life. Though understandable, I should ask that you look more carefully into this matter. I should ask that you look at this wonderful episode in your life, whatever it might be, and see if ever you experienced it before a particular person that you associate, And do you feel that you could ever experience it without that same individual? This will also reveal much to you, beloved. For you shall come to see, I believe, that the so-called pleasure or beautiful thing, wonderful experience, is in fact independent of that individual. And yet you've associated the two, in some cases absolutely, and in some cases exclusively. I believe that's called painting yourself into a corner. I don't suggest it. You have all experienced the joy of meeting someone in your life that you might consider a teacher. And yet, could it be that that individual has merely said to you the things that you were ready to say to yourself, and indeed was merely a mouthpiece for your own wisdom? I put the question before you. Whose wisdom is involved? I would also say, of course, that when we look at those things that have been most painful, most challenging, most stressful, and most humiliating, we oft will connect or associate one or more persons with this thing as well. Again, I would put the question, is this truly accurate? And could it be that that episode or experience was simply our own way of learning something that we needed to learn? And it just so happened that said individual that up to that point we had associated with that thing, well, it was almost like a passerby. They, in all likelihood, are gone. But you see, the memory remains. Whose is it then? Theirs or yours? Let us speak now of spirituality. Let us speak of the most lofty concepts that you can hold, spiritually speaking, or about spiritual realities. No doubt you associate something or someone with this as well. I wonder, who could this be? It shall be different in the case of each one, though no doubt there'll be similarities, owing to culture, age, gender, and self-realization. You can easily apply the foregoing formula to this as well. I believe you begin to see how this works, my dears, and how foolish we've all been in the past when we limited our experience to one person or one gender or one race, or one family, or one anything. It's all you. That's capital Y. Beloved brethren in flesh, you shall know the keen interest in alleviating human suffering most acutely when you have departed it, generally through that change called death. After the immeasurable relief comes clarity. How can a man, or woman for that matter, in terrible pain think clearly? It's rather difficult to do. But when you're free of that pain, you are restored, your balance is back, and you can begin to see and cognize something that I suppose you might call truth. And so it follows that when you have quit your earthly ordeals and have regained to spirit, that you can't help but feel a deep desire to help those still caught in their own self-induced ordeals, challenges, and dramas. It is out of this feeling, beloved, that I come to you. I've watched long and sought deeply to add something, anything, that could clarify unto those still struggling what might just be the cause of that struggle. The Divine Mother's been kind to me. She has graced me with visions, insights, and this wonderful, wonderful revelation about association. And it is in this beautiful new light that I come to you, placing it on the table of your inspection. Some of you associate beauty with music. But would it surprise you if I told you that there are vast numbers of the Earth's population who do no such thing? Some of you associate yourselves with your families. Again, there are millions who never do. There are those in the world who constantly associate themselves with whatever race their physical body happens to be. And that implies that they are inadvertently, but willingly, taking on that race's karma, limitations, advantages and disadvantages as well. And so you see, beloved, that when you encounter each other on the highways and byways of earth, keep this in your memories, that what you see before you, the soul that you might happen to be in communication with, in all likelihood, has got some very, very different associations than your own. And thus, each one of you are not only unique, but in many cases, completely in disagreement, mentally speaking. It's a wonder that we get along at all. And yet we do, don't we? For what have we in common, if not certain associations, such as the importance of touching another soul, one way or the other. I will tell you now, my dears, there are certain rather universal associations, and this is one of them. A mystery to me at first, when first I noted it. But then, the most heartfelt smile came over my soul as I realized that that association appeared to have been placed there not by the individuals themselves, but by some other force. The association, generally a pleasant one, that most feel about fondness for even one other soul, and generally speaking, that pleasure is amplified as the numbers grow. Also, a universal association. One association, also fairly universal, seems to be a very deep-seated tendency to unite with others versus to avoid them. These things might appear very simple, and indeed they are. What makes them most interesting is that they are brought into life and not so much arrived upon once one is in physical life. And so they are eternal, ancient at least, whereas many of the others are not, changing with each incarnation. Beloved, you all have careers that you are in the process of unfolding, developing, sculpting, reaching for, achieving, creating, mimicking, pursuing, and completing. You also have certain clouds that you tend to studiously avoid. These clouds can be people, feelings, locations, mindsets, or conditions in your lives. That you might be free of these, I suggest that in a time of great bravery and honesty, you list the 5 worst things you can think of that affect you one way or the other. And then see, beloved, what words you would associate with them. Words being but titles, handles, names, designations of things you associate with these. Much can be gleaned, much realized, and freedom won by such a simple, if tedious, little exercise. And so now you've got it. The tool called the list. I leave it with you, knowing that if you care to use it, only realization can come. I associate you all with great bliss, and so I am happy and blissful. And though I appear to depart, the bliss that I associate you with never ever leaves me. Thank you, beloved. Blissful souls, I love you all. I'm seeing what I think is the cover, I guess, of this book. It's very beautifully bright, like what's it called, that pastel colors, very light pastels. And it says in big letters, association. A key to cosmos. And then at the bottom it says, thoughts. I think it's thoughts of Estelle Roberts through Hakalani. It's a beautiful cover. It's very pretty. It looks like it's got like like a shimmering color on the front, like almost like sequins or something. It's very beautiful. Well, that's our class for tonight.